10 game-changing AI applications. So one thing to clarify in terms of what I mean by application, oftentimes we think of applications as like a product, you know, or service that you would buy, et cetera. Here I'm talking more about uses. So maybe uses would be a better term than applications. But 10 game-changing uses for AI for those of us in the realm of lean manufacturing or continuous improvement, that kind of discipline. That's where I'm focusing because that's what I do, and presumably that's what a lot of you do as well. Okay, so let's get started. This is my bio. I don't want to spend too much time on this, just to let you know that I do actually have real work experience in manufacturing prior to doing this lean consulting thing. But I'm coming up on so my two prior work experiences in my career were at Storage Technology Corporation and Ball Aerospace, both two, I guess you could call them high-tech companies. Storage Tech was computer industry and Ball Aerospace was aerospace industry. But in 1994, I joined this company called the John Costanza Institute of Technology, JCIT, and that was my lean consulting company that I started this whole career in. And that was 1994. So now we're at 2024. So in November of this year, I'll be celebrating my 30th anniversary of being a full-time lean consultant and trainer. So milestone year here. But a couple additional comments too about this presentation and about AI in general. Well, you know, AI, it came on the scene last year, so not that long ago, but it's pretty much embedding itself in a lot of what we do. For example, Microsoft has this offering called Copilot. So they have a ChatGPT type of tool included with Edge. But also they have Copilot for Word, Copilot for Excel, Copilot for PowerPoint. So they're embedding AI into their Office suite. But I'm sure you've seen it. It's not a secret to any of you that it's showing up just about everywhere. Anyone that has some kind of product is trying to figure out how to embed AI into its use. So that's happening all over the place. Second comment is that this presentation is not from the point of view of sorry to disappoint you. It's not from the point of view of an AI expert. I mean, there are presentations like that you can find on YouTube, et cetera. These are people who are at the top of their game, leading the industry, leading these companies. That's not me. I am a practitioner like you. So I guess that's good news from the point of view that the kind of things I'll share with you are things that I've actually done without having to be an AI expert or without having to be an IT expert. I'm not a coder. I know a little bit about coding, so I'm not entirely unfamiliar with it, but I'm far from being an expert at it. So I hope this kind of maps with your background as well, because we'll talk about things that you can actually do. So the third point is that the examples I'm going to share with you, are things that I've actually done. So these aren't like thought experiments. These are things I've actually, implemented and created. But there are 10 of them I want to share. So I'm not going to be able to dive too deep on any one, because even if it was 5 minutes per example, that's 50 minutes right there. So that consumes all of our webinar time. So I'll be going through reasonably fast unless I get sidetracked. But there will be things that I've actually done, right? Fourth comment is whatever I'm sharing with you here could be obsolete pretty quickly as well, or maybe some of them are already old hat from an AI perspective. So there are, the whole arena is changing very, very quickly, evolving quickly. For example, just in the last couple of weeks, I've been learning new things about large context windows. What is meant by that is how much information can you actually upload in the prompt itself, and that used to be fairly limited in terms of number of characters you could actually type into the chat window or upload as a file, and now it's getting much bigger. So you can actually do more with your own information, your own proprietary information. I mean, they're talking about context windows that are in the millions of characters, let's say. Other thing going on is agents. This is a pretty exciting area where you can actually create agents to do work, not just provide information, which is kind of where we are up to now, but can actually do some work, like schedule appointments for you, manage things directly, actually respond to emails automatically. All those kind of things are coming online for us to use. And then the last one, which is kind of slightly concerning, is this idea of jailbreaks, where people are coming up with ways to break the kind of protections that we have built into AI. So right now, if you go into ChatGPT and say, give me the step-by-step process to build a bomb, right? It's not gonna cooperate with you. It's gonna say, nope, sorry, can't do that. But if you apparently with these techniques, which again I'm not familiar with, I'm just telling you what's going on. There are ways, at least up to now, to confuse ChatGPT so that you can get it to actually answer those kind of questions. So all kinds of opportunities and concerns going on in this arena. So at the end of the poll. Yes, let me mention that. I posted a poll just to get some idea of how much experience you all have with AI. So we'll look at that in just a second, but it should be available on your screen, right? And so go ahead and respond to that, and then we'll look at your profile here as a group, not individually, but as a group. So if you have any interesting AI projects you've worked on that you'd be willing to share, just tell us what you've been doing. That would be great at the end. Or if you have any questions, just post them in either the Q&A or the chat, and we'll take a look at the end of the webinar. All right. So let's take a look at the poll here. See if I can pull that up. I'm going to end the poll, and here are the results. I hope you can see that. So almost half of you, not much. Okay, well that's good news. I mean, you got an exciting world ahead of you to explore. And then another 30% has dabbled with it. I assume is connected, tried things out a little bit, and then a quarter of you have been using it fairly regularly, and then 0% of you are obsessed. So maybe someday some of you will become obsessed. By obsessed, I mean thinking about it, getting in more often than every so often, and trying to actually use the stuff. Our goal, I think, would be to try to move you to the obsessive file, if it makes sense. All right, very interesting. So let's continue. Here's a slogan that I saw that I think makes sense. One of the concerns with AI is, what is this dangerous, or what's going to happen to jobs, et cetera. At least for the time being, I think this is probably true. AI is not going to take your job by itself, but a person that is good at using AI will or might, right, take your job. And that's kind of where we are today. So the way I would view it is this becomes a non-optional option. That is, no one's putting a gun to your head to learn about AI or use it. But as we go forward, some people that get into this are going to be much more, say, productive in using AI, and the number of people needed in certain areas, maybe hours, is going to potentially go down. So I guess it would be advisable for just maybe any of you watching this to look into it, right, and start maybe integrating some of these things into your own workflow. And this is what I'll be sharing with you in this webinar, things that I've actually done. Great. Now, what AI tools have I been using? There are basically 4 of them. There's the famous ChatGPT 4. Now, I'm using the paid version. The paid version is not very expensive. I think it's $20 a month. So that's not terrible, but it gives you additional capability. It gives you access to ChatGPT 4, like the most advanced ChatGPT. So I think it's well worth that investment. So that's my main one, I would say, that I'm using. But also recently, Claude.ai kind of a competitor to ChatGPT has come to the forefront, and people are saying on the street that it's actually superior, better than ChatGPT 4 in a lot of ways. Say more accurate, less hallucination, faster, better at dealing with data and numbers, etc. So I have the chat version of Claude as well that I use. That's again another $20 a month tool. But those are my two main tools. Now, as part of our work, we've also paid for, again, this is paid, but we're using something called Custom GPT, which allows us to upload our own information relative to our lean work, the books that we've written, the PowerPoint presentations we've given, the YouTube videos that we've created over the years, and use that as the primary data source for kind of a chat situation. And the advantage there is that the answers that we're going to get out of Custom GPT are going to be specific to our particular view of lean and our particular version of the truth, and not just something that ChatGPT or Claude learned, in general on the internet. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. And then the last thing I use more as an experiment is this tool called Jan, Jan. And what this allows me to do is run these GPT or AI models on my local computer, not connected to the internet. So I download the model and then I can run it. And there's access to several dozen models that are out there. Some are, say, more tuned to do certain things. Like some are more tuned to do coding, like, create Python script, that kind of thing. But there are a whole lot of public access models, AI models. And Jan will allow me to run them on my local computer, which is not like a supercomputer. It's like a HP, fairly new, I think it's about a year old, HP desktop, but seems to do a reasonably good job. Maybe not quite as fast as the online, ChatGPT or Claude, but pretty close, just running on my local PC, although I can hear the fan fire up, cooling down the CPU when it is running. So those are the tools I've been using to do what I'll be sharing with you here shortly. And when I looked at the kind of things I'd done over the last year or so, they tend to fall into 4 general categories. And so I've tried to identify which of these categories, as we go through them, are applied. First one is just general learning or research. That's been an important one and probably a common one for everyone using these tools. Second one is automation. By that, I kind of mean writing macros or writing code. Since I'm not a great Python programmer, I tend to lean towards, and we use Excel a fair amount. I've been tending to lean towards using Excel VBA code. So I'll share with you some of the things I've done there from a lean perspective. And then we have just general large language model applications. So that is applications that are language oriented, like writing books, for example. And I'll share with you stuff I've done there. And then finally, we have models. By that, I mean simulation models, because we're big fans of simulation modeling. And I wanted to see, I'm experimenting with how we could build these models more efficiently, quickly, using AI as a helper, right? So it should be interesting. Let's get going. So the first one is basic research. That's just, when I want to know something, in the past, I would Google it. It's even become a verb, right? I Google, Google it, Google something. I Google, you Google, we all Google. But I tend these days to go more towards AI, asking ChatGPT, because depending on the kind of question I'm asking, ChatGPT tends to give me more direct answers. Whereas Google gives me a whole list of links that I then have to vet or, and research. So Google is kind of a 2 or 3 step process, whereas ChatGPT or Claude tends to give me, in many cases, what I'm looking for, right, with one single click. Now, if the answer is not detailed enough, you can ask again, because AI or ChatGPT has lots of information that you have to ask for before it'll drill down. But I tend to go in that direction these days. For example, in this, what you see here is a question: what's an Obeya room? If you're curious, Well, if I go to Google on the right side, it'll give me page after page of links related to Obeya Room, and there might be some great information there, but I still have to kind of sort through it and figure out where, what I want. Whereas ChatGPT gave me a nice one paragraph summary of what it is. And then if I want more, I can ask for more from AI. So I would say the search engine world that I'm into for various questions every day tends to go these days right to ChatGPT or Claude.ai. Now you have to be careful. So there are questions I don't ask AI, and those tend to be questions where I want specific information, like specific numbers or calculations, or in this case, specific links, because I find that ChatGPT and Claude, they're both very confident in their answers. They don't usually say, gee, I'm not sure. They'll give you an answer, but in the arena of actual data and numbers and links like you see here, it'll just make things up. I think it's getting better. Obviously, this is a problem, and I think they're getting better over time. But these links you see here were in response to my request for give me 10 links for the best articles on the subject of Hoshin Kanri. Okay, so it gave me these links, but when I clicked on these links, every one of them was non-real, a fake link. That's really weird, isn't it? It gave me these links that looked legitimate. And Mark Graban, I mean, we know Mark Graban, but I don't think he's ever written an article on strategic planning methodology, Hoshin Kanri. And when I click on it, it's not found. So that's problematic. So again, for those types of questions where you want a specific answer, you're better off going right to Google, right, and trying to find, specific, more trustworthy information. So at least up to now, you have to be a little more careful with the types of questions you're asking to ChatGPT. All right, so let's get into it. So that was app number one. App number two is testing knowledge. So one of the things we do in our lean practice is we teach courses, and we have online courses and we have live courses, and we like to, determine if people are paying attention or if they've understood it or not. And so the one way you can do that is to test them, right? Test your knowledge. Now, we can create test questions, ourselves, or you can these days ask ChatGPT or Claude to come up with the questions. And especially because we're using our own information, especially with now that we're using custom GPT, we can ask the AI to just use the information we're providing. Don't go out there and rely on what you've been trained in necessarily. Just use the information I'm giving you to create some questions. And it's been very successful in generating, quizzes and exams. So use known information sources. So what I've been doing with ChatGPT and Claude is I've been uploading or giving them access to our books on these various topics, and then saying, okay, based on what I've just given you, give me a 20-question multiple choice, true, false, or short answer exam. And then, of course, I review it. I look at those questions and determine if they make sense or not. But that's a whole lot more efficient than me typing them. And what I find is that the questions, generally speaking, are really good. So I've been really happy with that. So in terms of generating quizzes, and this could even be dynamic quizzes that get generated, on the spot, so that every time a student would take this quiz, it would be a different one. Maybe not totally different, but potentially different from the one that was done by another student just a few minutes prior. So my process is basically use known information sources, provide known information sources, and be very specific to AI. I want you to use this information. And then I have a fairly detailed prompt about how I want these questions to be created. For example, what question formats do I want? What kind of style of questioning do I want to have? How to score them might be another instruction I would give. So this would be a one-time script that would instruct AI in terms of the general format, the rules of creating these quizzes. And then we want to give students not only whether they got the answer right or wrong. But this is another brilliant benefit here of using AI, is that the AI can actually give them an explanation, whether they gave the right answer or the wrong one, in terms of why this is the right answer. So that's extremely helpful as well. And then finally give them a score, at the end. So this kind of process could either be used to create a packaged or canned quiz using something like Articulate Quizmaker, LearnDash quizzes. There are all kinds of tools to create quizzes, or you can use it to create a dynamic kind of quiz. Now, if you want to be more confident that it's a good quiz and the answers are correct, you'd want to use AI to generate the quizzes for you and then copy them or port them to an actual Quizmaker kind of software tool that we use. If you have more confidence that it's going to be doing a good job because you have experience with this, you could allow the dynamic option. So I've used both, but okay, let's move on. Private chatbot. So this has been pretty cool for us. We have a website called the Lean Design Studio. So this is our repository. It's a membership site for all of our courses and content, white papers, videos, tools, simulation software, all kinds of things in the Lean Design Studio. What we wanted to do was create a chatbot that was going to respond to questions that a member might have when they're logged into this website. But we wanted the answers to those questions to be specific, right, to the Lean Design Studio, to our content. So this is where we use the custom GPT tool that I mentioned to you earlier. And what that allows us to do is to create basically a library that's private, a library of content that I can add to, at any point. And so when people go in and select the Lean Sensei chatbot, and ask questions, those answers are going to be coming from our own content as opposed to outside, unvetted, unauthorized content from the training that ChatGPT or Claude might have received originally. So that's extremely helpful for us, right? Because we have a lot more confidence in the types of answers that these students are going to get. So this is something we're using. Right, I'll show you an example of that in a second. But also, Custom GPT has recently come up with a personas feature. That's like a personality feature. And what that is, it allows you to create different links to Custom GPT based on certain personality profiles or skills, let's say. So we can create, it's kind of like different characters that are focused or specialized in different aspects of what we do. For example, we are pretty deeply embedded in the world of material flow and supply chain management. On the other hand, we're also involved with line design, right? Value stream design. So those are two separate areas in a lot of ways. So we can create personas that are experts in each of those areas, which kind of helps fine tune the kind of answers that people are going to get when they interact with those AI personalities. So enjoying that feature as well. So here's the homepage of our Lean Design Studio, and we have a little link. It's actually on every page in the website, kind of a graphic of our Lean Sensei. And when you click on that, you're going to get a chat box, kind of similar to ChatGPT or any kind of chatbot, where you can ask questions and then you get answers. But again, those answers are going to be specific to our website and to our practice. Leonardo Group America is our company, and the body of knowledge, our intellectual property that we've developed over the decades now, right? I told you 30 years. And so that's been really powerful for us, and you could do the same. Now, a custom GPT is a paid service, but again, none of these are hugely expensive. They're not totally unaffordable. Now, another way, this is app number 4, another way to kind of approach this, the same goal of having customized applications is with ChatGPT. They offer a GPT kind of function that lets you build an app that will do something specific, right, based on the instructions you give it. And if you have the paid version of ChatGPT, you can get access to this. You have access to it. It's up here in the upper left corner, it says ChatGPT. You can build your own custom GPTs, which is pretty cool. However, it's only truly useful, I would think. By the way, there have been tens of thousands, maybe not tens, but over 10,000 GPTs, and it probably grows every day exponentially. Of these things have been created by people using ChatGPT. But in my opinion, it's only really useful if you are able to integrate different kinds of applications together into a single kind of app, but using APIs or other ways. And this is kind of beyond my pay grade. I don't know how to do that. But what I see is a lot of these GPTs are not really truly useful because you could do the same thing just directly in ChatGPT. So what you want to do is build a GPT, which is what they call them, GPTs, that do things that you can't just do yourself, right, in ChatGPT. And there are some of those. For example, there's one, the second bullet here, example programming platform. This is coming online. Some of you may have found out about this and can share with us the name of it. It escapes me, the one I've read about anyway, where you can actually have ChatGPT or using this GPT app, write the code, run the code, debug the code, all within a single app, as opposed to writing the code and then you have to load it into some kind of a tool like a Python, interpreter and debug it yourself. So that's where these GPTs can be truly useful. If you can pull in different applications, different tools from different places and tie it all together. The negative of the GPTs, as far as I know, you have to have a ChatGPT subscription, right, to be able to use them. They have a store. They have a GPT store. So if you have an app, you can actually load your own little creation into the store, and presumably people will pay you, or if they access it, I think it's kind of like YouTube. If people access your GPT, then you get some kind of royalties. But the word on the street is no one's really making any money doing that yet, if ever. So I wouldn't count on that to quit your day job and build these GPTs. But interesting arena, and we'll see where that goes. All right, app number 5, creating content. So this is really an exciting one for us. So here's what I actually did. We teach a course on material flow. We teach it at Toyota. In fact, there's one coming up. If any of you are interested, there's one. I think we have maybe 2 seats left, if that. But it's the week after next. It's at Toyota Material Handling. So part of what we've done over the years is we've created an online version of that class. And to do an online version of the course, we had to script each slide, because we found out just trying to wing it, it was kind of unprofessional. It just didn't come off, well, without kind of scripting what we wanted to say for each slide. And then we recorded it, and then it's available as part of our Lean Design Studio. So we have a whole, it's pretty substantial. Spoiler alert, it's about 10 hours of online training on this material flow course. Mixed Model Material Flow is the title. So we had that, but we didn't have a book. For our line design class, again, something we teach at Toyota, we had a book that we wrote a few years ago called the Complete Guide to Mixed Model Line Design, but we didn't have one for materials. And my partner Gerard and I were always talking about, we need a book to go along with it, but we didn't have it. And to write a book, we knew what an effort that was, because we'd already done it once. It was a big job. I mean, it took us several years. I mean, not full time, obviously, but it took us several years of continuous effort to write our first one and get it out the door. So I wanted to see if we could use AI to do something a little different. So here's what I did. And I've kind of laid out the steps here on this slide. So step 1, I took the PowerPoints. Remember, they were scripted. It wasn't just the bullets. In the notes section of the PowerPoint was the text of someone that would, what someone would say. And we used that when we recorded the online version. But it was written in a spoken English style, right? sort of natural English, informal, just, speaking to the camera. And if you just tried to take that and put that into a book, it doesn't work, right? It's just not, it doesn't sound right for a book format. So, but I was able to export that out of PowerPoint, right, into a Word file. That's just one of the options, right? Export in PowerPoint. So I started with that. So I had all the scripts basically, slide by slide, in a Word file. And then what I did was this. I opened on my desktop, I opened the Word file, I opened the PowerPoint file, the original lesson file, and I think I used ChatGPT for this. So ChatGPT. And then what I did was I went slide by slide. So again, I'm not saying this was a one-click solution. This took some time, but I went slide by slide. I took the text, the script, and I pasted it into ChatGPT along with some instructions that I'd given ChatGPT previously. And those instructions were, look, we're going to write a book. I'm going to give you the information, but I need you to help me repackage it in a book style. So I want a professional but friendly writing style. I want you to use my information that I'm giving you slide by slide, and I want you to break it into logical paragraphs if it's more than one. And if you notice anything on this particular topic that would benefit from some additional information based on your broad experience, I'm assuming here ChatGPT's read every book on lean manufacturing and material management, ever written. If there's anything that we could add to it that would contribute, in a positive way to this topic, then do that. And so that's what I did. I went slide by slide. Now, some slides were just examples and so on that didn't make sense. I skipped them. But I went slide by slide through our course, which was already organized pretty well, right? Chapter by chapter, lesson by lesson. And right here, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but for every slide, ChatGPT would give me the answer. I would read it. In some cases, not unusual, I would ask to redo it, based on whatever I read there, or I might make some manual edits myself. And then I would take that and I would paste it into a blank Word document, a new one, and then rinse and repeat. So how long did it take me to do this? It took me a full days. It probably took me 2 or 3 days, I would say. But that's a whole lot better than 2 or 3 years. And at the end, we got what I think was a really well-written book based on our content, but with the help of ChatGPT as kind of a trusted advisor / editor is kind of the role of ChatGPT. And so here's the result. This is published through Amazon. Again, it's not available yet. This is still a review copy, but we have an actual book called Material Flow, and organized in a very logical way. The writing is excellent. It was in a Word document. Word has an editor function where it'll review your writing. And it came up with some things. I needed to improve it. But currently the book is like 99% or 100% in terms of the writing style, readability, everything. It's a beautiful book. It really is. But the thing is, it was based on our content, not based on ChatGPT, please write me a book on material flow. Enter. No, that was not it. It was basically a collaborative process. So let me spend a minute and just go through this again, because I think this is a kind of game changing. Is this cheating, right? Is this not a real book, right? Was this written by AI? Well, my answer in this case is no, right? I feel like it's our content. And we were just asking ChatGPT to work with us, right, as a partner to make it better, right, make it more of a book format. So that would be different. It would be different if I said, ChatGPT, write me a book, right? Or if I just gave it an outline and said, fill in all the blanks. We didn't do that in this case. So I'm confident that this is, we can put our name on it. Richard Rahn, Gerard Leone on the book. It doesn't require you or me to be a subject matter expert, right? Because I was able to edit the results out of ChatGPT, read it, and know if it was good, correct, or not, or fix it, right? Or add things to it. So that's pretty much a requirement. You're not going to be able to write a book knowing nothing about the subject. So let's get that out of the way. Now, what does Amazon have to say about it? Amazon, because we're using Amazon these days. It's called Kindle Direct Publishing to print the books, right, and make them available for sale as well. So Amazon is concerned about people generating AI books, right, and just flooding the market with books that had no real human interaction with them. Understandably, and I agree with that. So these days, when you publish a book through Amazon or set it up for printing, even they ask you some questions like how much AI involvement did you use in creating this book? And one of the choices is used AI with heavy editing, and that's how I felt. That was the classification that we fell into because it was using our content. So we passed. Amazon did not have a problem with it, understanding that level of engagement. Now, if I'd said, it's 99% AI generated or 80% AI generated, that would have been probably a showstopper, potentially, right? They wouldn't have liked that. But we did pass. Now, how is this different from just having a human editor? Well, it's similar in a lot of ways. I used to room back in my college days. I roomed with a woman, young woman, who was an editor. She was a professional editor, and they would send her in the mail. Again, this is pre-internet, but they would send her a manuscript, and she would, in her spare time, part-time job, but she would take the manuscript with a red pencil and mark it up and edit it and then send it back. So you can imagine how time-consuming that was and how much work on the other side, getting back the marked up manuscript. But one of the things she said to me was, boy, some of these writers, even pretty well-known writers, are horrible writers. They have good ideas, but they really need an editor to help them, right? To organize their paragraphs, and their grammar and their sentence structure oftentimes is not good. So an editor will provide that kind of help. And oftentimes they don't get credit, right? They may have they contributed a lot, but they may not get full credit for the contribution that they're making to these books. Now, this is a little bit different. So AI is providing that editing capability because, frankly, ChatGPT and Claude are really good writers. That's their main strength. Large language models is what they are. So I'm getting that benefit. But also, I was asking for additional contribution, and I was getting that as well, because more often than not, AI, or ChatGPT in this case, was suggesting some additional content that I agreed with. Boy, that's a good idea, I thought, but I hadn't thought of it. I knew about it maybe, but I hadn't actually thought about including it here. So I was getting some valuable, actual additional content contribution that an editor would normally not do, right? An editor's not going to be adding content to a nonfiction book. But in this case, I was getting some additional benefit in that way. Now, I'm going to talk, so we'll leave it at that. So this is really great for us, I think. We now have a new book. Not published yet. We're still, looking through it, making sure that it's 100%. So we're doing some human-based editing at the end here, but within the next few weeks, it'll be available on Amazon. Now, can this go the other direction? What if you have a book already that you've written, but you don't have a course? So let's take a look at that. That's another, it's kind of like the opposite side of the coin. And we do have that. Let's see if I don't have the book. Well, here's the book. A colleague of mine in Norway, he's kind of like the local lean manufacturing expert in Norway, recognized as one of the lean experts in Norway, Bjarne Bergvik. So Bjarne wrote this book recently called Systems Thinking with Obeya. And I got a copy of it. He sent me a copy, actually, and I thought, wow, this is really great, interesting stuff. But Bjarne, no one's going to read this really, or very few people are going to read this. We need to do more with your book because it's a really good book. What about creating a course that people could take? And people that aren't that into reading these days either. So let's create a course, maybe an online course that people could take, or maybe even a program, coming out of that where if people want to set up an Obeya room, right, in their factory, we could have like a formalized program with steps, and deliverables, and, get some organization around that kind of effort. So he said, great. So what we're doing, just to make a long story short, we're doing a reverse engineering of what I shared with you previously. So we're starting with the book, and then we're asking Claude, I think in this clip, I'm using the Claude.ai, to create the course. So again, going lesson by lesson, I'm asking for individual slides that will eventually end up in PowerPoint with the title, with the bullets, with the instructor notes underneath, not just all bullets, but additional text if as appropriate. Recommend what kind of images we might have or videos we might put in there. Claude is not going to create those, but it might have some ideas. It usually does in terms of appropriate illustrations or examples. It can create quizzes. It can create summaries at the end of every chapter or lesson in this case. Action items can be identified. So we're getting tremendous help. But again, the important point is this is based on our information. In this case, on Bjarne Bergwig's book. We want to use that as the primary source. So again, the amount of time, this is something we could do ourselves, but probably not as good, to be honest, and take a whole lot longer. So this is something we're working on right now. This is in progress, but so far so good. I mean, really, it's really exciting to be able to do this. But again, we have to be the subject matter experts. We have to kind of know what we're talking about here to be able to know if what we're getting back from ChatGPT or Claude is any good. But so far so good. All right, next thing, let's see, how are we doing on time? So not so good as usual. So let me speed it up a little bit. I've been asking ChatGPT and Claude to write macros primarily in terms of automation. And sometimes it's a iterative process to get a macro working the way I want it to. Usually it's my fault because I'm not giving ChatGPT enough detail to be able to create exactly what I want. So it's kind of a back and forth process. Maybe that's unavoidable. I don't know. But I rarely get a macro, unless it's a really simple one. I rarely get a macro that runs the way I want it to the first time. But I can review what I don't want, and we can correct it. So back and forth, and then we finally get a macro that'll do something that I want it to do. So in this case, I have a list of, this is from our line design workshop that we teach, kind of like the working example. We have a list of bicycles here on the left side. We have 10 different models, and we have volumes. This is for design purposes. What kind of daily volume do we want to be able to achieve? So capacity goals for each of those models. Not a limit, but it's kind of a daily demand we'd expect for each of those models. And then across the top, we have the different processes required to build these bicycles, because these are bicycles. So one of the first steps in our line design process is to determine, do we really have a good grouping of products to combine in a mixed model line? We kind of want to take a look at that from the point of view of commonality of process, and later on commonality of work content time, and commonality of materials. So, you can't mix everything in a mixed model line. So this is an analysis step that we do. Again, this is something we can do manually, but if we could just write a macro to help us do that analysis, the analysis is grouping what could be a long list of products. You could have 100 different models or 1,000, grouping a long list into products that share exactly the same flow, the same process flow. Again, there are ways to do this manually. It's not that difficult, but a macro will do it probably in this example with 10 models. It did it in less than a second, probably half a second. Group it and then color code the different subfamilies, groupings. And then with that, you can look and see how much variation there actually is, at least from a commonality of process perspective, and make a decision, is everything gonna fit in this mixed model line? Or do we need to, really start thinking about 2 lines or more? So again, I created a macro to do this. So when you have the list of products, you have the processes, you have an X if that product requires that process, you just click on the macro and boom, less than a second later, you got your result. Right, so I'll leave it at that. Another one which can be very useful is line balancing. So this is a standard work definition form. Again, for one of our bicycles, this is one model only, and it lists all the steps, right, to assemble, final assembly, so assemble a bicycle. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, so there are, what, 35? No, yeah, 35 steps to assemble a bicycle. And then we have work content times shown there, labor time. It's all labor in this case. We have some self-check documentation, so inspection documentation. We have some setup required, as well as the so-called value-added time. So what this macro will do is simply, it'll prompt me for how many stations do you want to balance this to? And that's something you would calculate, as part of the line design process. So you might say, okay, I need 6 sequential assembly stations. The macro is going to prompt me for how many, 6, and then it's going to go ahead and group the work here into 6 balanced, operations as well as it can, as well as it can. So here's the script that I submitted, and here's the result I got for creating this macro. Please divide the work into 5 sequential workstations, balancing the work between stations as evenly as possible. Give me the start and end task number for each of the 5 stations, plus the total time for each. Time is measured in minutes. And then ChatGPT came back with, I'd uploaded a CSV file, I think, of this standard work document. And ChatGPT said, in this case, I've assigned whole tasks to each station. Well, that's requirement, so that's a good observation there, Chat. While trying to balance the times as close to the average of 1.56 minutes. So it calculated that. But since the task cannot be subdivided, there's unavoidable imbalance. This is true. I tried to minimize it by assigning tasks to each station within the time limits, et cetera, et cetera. So it came back on the screen with its line balancing result. Based on a satisfactory result there, I then had it create a macro, right, to do that within Excel, as opposed to doing it inside ChatGPT. So I'm going to leave it there, but that gives you some idea. Last example of automation. This is our line design calculation spreadsheet. Again, the same bicycle factory, but in this case, instead of an X, we have actual times, work content times in minutes. So there's normally we would create underneath this matrix here some calculations. If you're involved in the lean world, this will be familiar with you. We need process volumes. Because there's some optional processes, not everything has the same volume going through it. So process volumes, available work time, so it's effective work minutes, basically, available to do work. And then we have a calculation of takt time, the rhythm or beat of each process, which is not always the same. It depends on the volume going through that process. Then we have a calculation of the weighted work time based on, with the weightings being the relative capacity goals of each of those bicycle models. And then we can calculate resources, that's people or machines needed, with a couple decimal places. And then the final row here is number of workstations. So I may not need 2 full-time people, but if I need 1.6, then I still need 2 workstations, right? Places where someone can work. Even though I may not need someone full-time at any of those stations. So this is all stuff we can do manually. We have for years. We've done it for 30 years, right? Create a spreadsheet and done the calculations manually. But I create a macro that does it all, again, in less than 1 second. You click on it, and it'll do all the calculations. So this is helpful. So what I have here today is a toolkit, a virtual toolkit of different macro tools that I can use to just help make our work as line designers and material flow designers easier and faster. Right, and maybe more accurate, because once you've debugged the macro, it's not going to make mistakes like you might do if you're creating it manually. Right, so there we go. Last one, let's see, what is this? Oh, now this is kind of weird, but exciting. We're big fans of simulation modeling. And so what I wanted to do, I'm going to have to cut to the chase for time reasons, but one of the things I wanted to do was see if I could take this information, the line design information, and see if we could convert that information to a dynamic discrete event simulation model, right? We can create a simulation model from that with one click. That was the goal. In other words, create all the input files to our simulation modeling tool. We have our own, but there are lots of them available. Some of you may have had some experience with simulation modeling. So in one click, build the model in a format that can be imported into our simulation software as completely as possible. And so this took some time, fooling around, but learning, going back and forth, but I was successful in doing that. So let me show you the process. So basically, we would validate the data input worksheet that I showed you earlier, the resource calculation worksheet that we just saw here. And then we do the line design calculations. So that was automated. I created a macro for that. I showed you that already. And then we look it over. We don't assume it's all correct. So we're looking at, does this make sense? Make sure we're starting on a strong footing of good data. And then with a single click, I was able to build the various worksheets. Our simulation software tool accepts Excel as inputs to build the model. So we have various worksheets that need to be created. I identified those here in red. So we have parameters, flows, resources, flow defs, flow definitions, products, process times, and sequence. Sequence is the actual production plan that you want to test. What do I build first, second, third, how many, etc. So that was all automated based on my initial sheet, and then perform the final validation check is, okay, is everything hanging together here? Because we have different Excel worksheets, but we have to have the same part numbers, say for the bicycles, and things need to tie together. And so there's a macro that does that check as well. And then we can actually run the model, right? Load it into our simulation software. So I'm declaring victory on this, but that was specific to our software. Is the model freezing? Anyone else having problem? In chat, can someone share with me? Is anyone not hearing me? Okay, all right. Well, I'll continue. So then the question comes up, if you're not using our lean design simulator, that's the software, the simulation software that we designed for our own use in the studio, what about some of these commercial packages? So I did a little research, and I checked on FlexSim, some of the more common ones, FlexSim, ProModel, Simulate, Arena, Simio, AnyLogic. There are a bunch of choices here, but what I found was that all of them basically accepted some kind of external file to help build the model. Now, I didn't actually test it with them, but I guess the point is you don't have to use our software. I built it for our software, but it seems like you could apply this approach to almost any commercial simulation software and automate the process of building your models pretty quickly. So that's kind of a game changer, I would say, because normally it takes a while to build these models. But if you have that source data that you would have anyway, if you're following the mixed model line design method, then getting to having a working model, maybe it's not one click, but it's a whole lot faster. So that's kind of a game changer with the help of AI. So last comment, future things. So what's coming down the road? Well, you see some of these are crossed out. That's because I came up with these ideas a few weeks ago, and then I realized, hey, this already exists. So I'm already out of date. So provide a data sheet, and AI will create the input files for any software. I already did that myself. So so crossing that one out, that's possible. How about provide a camera or a video connected to an AI tool that creates work instructions? In other words, watches people doing work and then documents that and gives you a step-by-step documentation of the work step and the time. Well, guess what? I crossed that out already. There's a company called Retrocausal that we're actually talking to, seeing if there's some way, some room for partnering with them. But they already have those kind of tools. If you're interested, go to retrocausal.ai website, and you can see what they're up to. But basically it's that. And a whole lot more. They have a Kaizen kind of AI application as well. But basically, observe work and apply some intelligence to that. And so I'll leave it there, but check it out. It's pretty exciting. So what other things? Well, provide data, and then AI can actually model it without using simulation software. So if you can stretch your imagination a little bit and imagine an AI that is intelligent enough. AI already knows how discrete event simulation modeling works. It already knows that because I can ask it, and it'll tell you step by step the logic of building a discrete event simulation model. But when it gets smart enough, maybe not today, but in the future, you can actually have AI or ChatGPT build the model in AI and run it and give you the simulation results without needing simulation software like ProModel or Simulate or any of those. I can see that actually happening. Also in the realm of lean manufacturing, standard work definitions, providing standard work definitions, target volumes, process flow diagrams, provide that to AI and have it generate the line design, the modeling, and the design, right? The layout, create an actual CAD layout. Again, I don't know how many years down the road that would be, but I can easily see that happening. If you're dealing with an AI that's 100 times more intelligent than humans, why not? What's the big problem? Just create a lean manufacturing factory design. Set up webcams, and AI will observe the work and flag errors. Again, retrocausal AI is already moving in that direction. It can do that already. So someone does work, if they make a mistake, AI is watching and raises a flag. Hey, you did something out of sequence or you did something wrong. That's already available, apparently. I haven't seen it myself. Set up webcams, and AI will manage production status boards. So maybe you have boards showing the takt time, actual versus planned, line stoppages, all kinds of things happening in a factory are in a visual factory display. AI can be watching and actually manage those boards. I don't see that as being all that difficult either when you have super intelligent AIs. Lean Sensei is part of your Obeya Room team. Well, I guess we already have that because we're loading our own information into our Lean Sensei as part of our Lean Design Studio. You could make that part of your Obeya Room, where you have your leadership team or your supervisor team getting together, problem solving, troubleshooting, have AI as a member of the team, so to speak, because AI would already know your own processes, your own times. It's not shared with it's private, right? It's not shared with the outside world, but you could get a lot of valuable insight, I think, as part of that Obeya process. I'm crossing that out already. How about an AI advisor on your board of directors? So your private AI knows everything about your company, right? Your financials, your competitors, your processes, you name it, and there we go, right? I could see that happening easily. And also I could see AI as actually just replacing your entire MRP system, because if intelligent enough AI has access to some data, it can manage your supply chain probably better than your own supply chain people can in the future, I'm saying, not today. But I would see that coming. So maybe I'm making some of you nervous. Now, where are we today? Last comment. We're already at 11. Last comment is technology maturity. So where are we today with AI and all these tools that we just talked about? Well, I think the AI development had a long tail on the left side, the hyped phase, because it took a long time to get any results really that were useful. But I think what made the difference in more recent years is they started applying a lot more horsepower. Processors got faster, and they started providing a lot more data that they didn't really have available in the earlier years. And that seemed to make a difference. So we got into the promising phase, and probably now we're in the approaching, if not into the high ROI, not widely adopted phase. Right? Most people don't use AI or know that much about it. So we're probably in that phase. But the wild card here that didn't apply to previous technology maturity curves is that we have something called the singularity. And the singularity is a term they use for when we reach the point where AI becomes self-improving. So AI can already write code, right? We know that already. But if we reach a point where AI can write code to improve itself, and it can do so at a speed that way exceeds anything that humans can do, we have the potential for this red line you see here to go vertical in terms of capabilities. And that's what's called the singularity. So all bets are off if that should happen, or what kind of brakes could be put on that. But that's not, some people are saying that's not that far away. It used to be a few years ago, you'd ask people about the so-called singularity, and the answer would be, well, 2050, 2070 at the earliest. And now there are people that are saying within this decade, you can have AI systems that are self-improving. And when that happens, then pretty much all bets are off in terms of what to expect. And that's where a lot of these concerns are coming from. All right, so I'm going to end right here. I think so. Yep. And let's see if there are any comments that I need to address or post them right now. Medellin, Alejandro, I see you're from Medellin. My son was in Medellin, kind of on vacation, and loved it. Thought it was beautiful. Okay. Custom GPTs are hit and miss. Some prime got well. Richard is right that many don't save much time. Exactly. Right. So it's easy to create one, but who cares if you can just do it directly? But I see, potential there. Got to go. Bye, Michael. Last thing, yeah, we if you want a copy of this file, I can give you that to you right now. A copy of this PowerPoint presentation. I'm sharing it right now. And let's see if there's anything else. And we have a workshop, the mixed model material flow workshop. Again, it's almost full, but you might be able to get in if you take immediate action. That's the week after next, though. It's happening right away. Okay, yeah, Adil, let's catch up. I'm sorry I missed you last time. That was my fault, but we'll set up another time. I'll send you a link. Right, so are we done? Thanks for hanging in there. There's never enough time to keep it to an hour. There's so much to talk about. It's really an exciting thing. Oh, yes, Michael has posted another link there. There's a line design workshop at Toyota. These are really game changer, life-changing experiences, I think. Those of you that have been to them, like Maura, will attest to the fact that just being in the mothership of lean, which in my opinion, Toyota Material Handling is just a prime example, is a great experience. So this is in August. I think the first week of August, we have a line design workshop there as well.